They say the prairie is quiet in winter, peaceful. But peace ain't always a comfort. Sometimes peace is just what's left when everything else is gone. My name's Thomas Beckett. Folks used to call me a rancher, a husband, a war vet. Now they just call me the old man near the ridge. I'd buried my wife 2 winters back. No kids, no family, just me, a horse with more gray than strength, and a barn full of tools I barely used anymore. January came bitter that year. The wind had a voice, not a howl, not a whisper, just a slow grinding sound, like God sharpening a knife. And then came the boy. It was late afternoon. I'd just come back from checking the fence along the west line when I saw something strange near the northern post. At first, I thought it was a bundle of cloth. Maybe someone dumped trash near my property again. But it moved. I dismounted, walked closer, and my breath caught. It was a child. He couldn't have been more than 7. Barefoot, shivering, skin darker than mine, with long black hair tangled across his cheeks. His lips were blue, hands raw, split open at the knuckles. I knelt down. He flinched when I touched his shoulder, didn't speak, didn't look up, just whispered, "Don't take me back." I looked around. No tracks, no horse, no wagon, just snow, and one pair of small, sunken footprints leading from the direction of the reservation woods. Now let me say something right here. I'd spent most of my life hearing stories about the Narok people, the tribe pushed onto the dry land west of us. Settlers said they were dangerous. The government called them relocated. But my wife, Anna, she used to say, "You don't know people until you hear 'em, Tom. Not see, hear." That boy, he hadn't spoken a full sentence. But I heard him loud and clear. I picked him up. He didn't weigh more than a sack of potatoes. He tried to struggle, but passed out before I got to the house. Inside, I wrapped him in blankets, heated broth, lit the stove. He wouldn't eat at first, just kept looking at the door like someone would burst in any second. I said, "Ain't nobody coming through that door without me knowing it, son." He looked at me for the first time. Eyes so dark they looked like ink in candlelight. He didn't tell me his name. Didn't need to. I called him Jesse. He stayed the night on the cot near the fire. Didn't speak, didn't cry, but once, in his sleep, he mumbled, "Mama, no more smoke, no more shaking." The next day I went to town for supplies. Asked the clerk, old woman named Ruby, if she'd heard of anyone missing a child. She raised her brow. "Reservation's been closed off last few weeks. Illness." "What kind of illness?" She lowered her voice. "Hunger, cold, desperation." When I got back, Jesse was still curled on the cot, holding the blanket like it might vanish if he let go. That evening I noticed something strange. Far across the hills, just beyond the tree line, a light, a flicker, then another. Tiny campfires maybe, or signals, or warnings. I sat on the porch that night with my rifle across my lap, not in fear, just habit. Jesse came out, sat beside me, said nothing. But for the first time, he reached for my hand, and I let him. At dawn, I heard it. Hooves. Not 1, not 10. Hundreds. The ground shook. The snow trembled. Even the wind went quiet. I walked outside and froze. Lined across the field from the edge of the woods to the creek bed were horses. Over 200 of them. Each one mounted. Each rider straight-backed, silent, still. Feathers in their hair. Spears at their side. Eyes locked on me. Jesse stood behind me, whispered, "That's my uncle." A single rider stepped forward, an elder, paint on his face, scars down both arms. He spoke without raising his voice. "You touched our child. You fed him. You warmed his body." He paused, then said, "Now we listen." I stood still. Didn't know if they came to thank me or to bury me. But then Jesse stepped forward, walked past me, right to the elder, took his hand. And for the first time since I found him, he smiled. I looked around. None of the warriors reached for weapons. None rode forward, they just waited, calm, like a sea holding its breath. The elder turned back to me. "Your name, Cowboy?" I cleared my throat. "Thomas Beckett." He nodded. "Today, Thomas Beckett, you are not alone," and that was how it began. Not with a treaty, not with a handshake, but with a child, a bowl of soup, and the weight of 200 hearts watching to see what came next. They didn't come any closer that morning, just stood there, still, proud, waiting. And then, as quietly as they arrived, they rode off. All 200. Not a word spoken. Not a threat made. Just a message left behind. We're watching, we remember. Jesse stayed with me through the week. He started to talk. Not much, but enough. Told me about the reservation. How his mother died 2 winters ago. How the food drops stopped coming. How the people inside were being managed, not helped. He used that word like he'd heard it from someone else. Managed, like he wasn't a child. Just a number. I asked him why he ran. He said, I didn't. I walked. And I kept walking until I found a place where the wind didn't hurt. That night I lit the big lantern on the roof of the barn, the kind my father used when neighbors were welcome, when a storm was coming. I wasn't sure who would see it, but I knew someone needed to. 3 days later, 2 men showed up in black coats, government types. One carried a clipboard, the other a shotgun. They asked about the boy. I said he was safe. They said he belonged to the reservation. I said, he belongs to no one but himself. They didn't like that. The man with the clipboard spoke first. Mr. Beckett, harboring a native child without authorization can be considered interference in federal affairs. I looked him dead in the eye, and starving him to death isn't? They left, but not before taking photos. Of me, of Jesse, of the house. That night, we didn't light the lantern. We lit a fire, not to signal, to stay warm, because something cold was coming, and it wasn't just the weather. The next week, I rode into town, went to the local church, the general store, the feed co-op. I spoke, told them what I'd seen, what Jesse told me. Most turned away, some nodded. One old rancher said, ain't our business. I said, it becomes your business when your neighbor starts dying in the cold and you say nothing. I wrote letters to the newspaper, to the sheriff, to the governor. No one answered. But someone listened. Because one morning, just before sunup, wagons started coming down the trail, one by one, filled with blankets, flour, dried meat, firewood. At the front was the Narok elder. Same feathers, same paint. But this time, he dismounted, held out his hand. Thomas Beckett, you opened your door. Now we open ours. We unloaded the wagons together, built a cache by the border. No fence, no weapons, just people, passing food hand to hand. It wasn't much, but it was the first time I'd seen that many white folks and native riders stand side by side without rifles or orders. Jesse walked freely now. He ran with the dogs, learned to ride my old mare. He asked once if I could teach him to lasso. I laughed. You're already catching hearts, kid. What else you want to rope? Then came the letter, from Washington, stamped, official. Your actions have been noted. Further involvement with the Narok Nation will result in legal action. I burned it, didn't tell Jesse, didn't need to, because the next morning, before sunrise, they came again, all of them, 200 warriors. But this time, no spears, no paint. They carried gifts, baskets, tobacco, woven cloth, and at the front, a carved staff. Elder handed it to me. We do not forget. You gave one child warmth. We give your name to the fire. They called me White Stone Who Listened. I didn't deserve that, but I took it. Because sometimes the only thing you can do for a world gone cold is become one patch of warmth in it. Jesse stayed with me until spring. Then he chose to go back. Not because he had to, because he wanted to help rebuild. He said, they saw me come back smiling. Maybe now they'll believe there's more out there than fences. I cried when he left. He didn't look back. Just waved once, like a man, not a boy. Years later, folks still talk about that winter, about the cowboy and the child. Some say I was brave, some say I was foolish. But Jesse, he visits every fall, brings his children, calls me grandpa. And when people ask why 200 Narok warriors once stood outside an old man's barn, I say, because a child was starving and someone fed him. Thank you for watching. If you want to get more of that kind of stories, press like and check out our channel.